Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about plateaus and what you can do to get over them. So there's a couple tips in here for CFIs too. So if you're in a plateau yourself, or maybe your students in one, keep watching. Here's some tips that I've just developed over the years that seem to really help. All right, number one, go to another airport. Okay, so let's say your student is just really crummy at maneuvers for whatever reason, whatever maneuver it is. Go to a new practice area, right? Or maybe just fly a little further out than what they're used to. Sometimes little resets like that can make a huge difference. Same thing with landings. If your landings are crap, it's maybe because you've only taken your student to one airport. So if there's other airports in the area, go. Even if it's a class Charlie, go, right? They get to see how operations are different. You get to work on being in a busier airspace, a busier airport, but definitely try to get to a different airport. I had sort of inadvertently stolen a student, and when I looked at his logbook, he had like 50-something hours. We didn't know this at the time, but this instructor was terrified to go anywhere else. And so from Santa Monica, he only went to two airports, Camarillo and Van Nuys. It's like, well, you're not going to make a well-rounded pilot in one of the busiest airspaces in the country if you're taking them to two airports. And of course they're going to suck at landings if they've only practiced landings at Van Nuys. It's busy, it's a tight airspace, there's a lot going on, it freaks people out, there's wake turbulence all the time. You know, so try to get them to a different airports, right? So like I would do special flight rules and I take them to Long Beach, I take them to Torrance, I take them to Fullerton, Corona. I would do a basin bashing day of, you know, Santa Monica, El Monte, Brackett, Chino, and then either straight back home, or then, you know, Chino, Corona, Riverside, Fullerton, Long Beach, you know. So it was like, okay, maybe they really suck at their landings. Maybe you've done 2 or 3 days of, you know, landing practice. They're just not getting it. Take them somewhere else. Sometimes different runways, different visual cues can help you teach them a bit more about what to look for in a landing, right? Hey, this runway is a lot skinnier than runways you've landed on previously, so your brain's gonna do this. Or hey, this runway is huge, so don't let your brain trick you, and then you would shoot a blank approach. I am not, this video is not for educational purposes. That's why I'm not teaching. Your CFI should know these answers though. So that's one way, is just to change it up, right? Go somewhere else for maneuvers, go somewhere else for your airport. Plus, as a CFI, you want to show that you're confident, right? You don't want to be that CFI that only took his students to 2 airports. Like, you want to be the CFI that's like, oh yeah, then we went here, we went there, we did this Charlie, and then we went to that class Charlie, and we went to this airport, and then she diverted me here. It was great. You know, you want that because you want the student to be confident when they're actually going in for their check ride. You don't want it to be like, Burbank, hi, you know, it's just like, like you want them to get in the rhythm of, hey, it's a busy airspace. Be sharp and hold yourself to a really high standard as an aviator. All right, number 2, fly with a different instructor. Now, I did not really have another go-to instructor that I could sort of like tag team with, and I kind of wish I had established that earlier. Just because most schools have a checkout policy. So it's like, oh, okay, before we solo you, we're going to make sure that we can, that, you know, this pilot, this instructor is going to fly with you just to confirm that I've taught you everything that I need to know. So I kind of always just use like random people, but it was kind of hard to find slots for my students sometimes. So sometimes I wish I'd kind of like tag teamed with that, but I really wasn't well liked. I mean, I was also like the only girl at my school. So it was kind of an enigma in and of itself. But yeah, try to find that, but fly with a different instructor. And red flag alert, okay? If you have an instructor who maybe you've flown with them like 4 or 5 times, and then they go to you one day and they say, if you ever fly with anybody else, I'm never flying with you again. Don't fly with that person anymore, because that is a possessive, jealous person. And good instructors understand that everyone has something to offer, right? Now, if you've flown with me and I've soloed you and then you go fly with somebody else and you like them to be your instructor, go, right? Like as a student, don't ever be scared to switch things up, because that's what I did, and I wasted a lot of valuable time when I could have gone out and found somebody who was really about my success, right? Like somebody who really wanted me to do well, rather than like, I don't want to hurt this person's feelings, right? They don't care. There's always another student, so don't worry about that. But yeah, that is a little bit of a red flag alert. But everyone has something to contribute, and everybody teaches things just a little bit differently, and everybody has different teaching styles. I was always very calm and cool and relaxed, firm when I needed to be, but it's kind of like I just sort of took it easy, and then I'd slowly start building up on the difficulties and sort of what I expected from them as time went on, right? As time progressed. And I've made quite a few pilots at my school, so I sort of figured all of that out. But yeah, fly with somebody else, because you'll never know what little tidbit they have that's gonna make the light bulb go off, right? So fly with another instructor. See if there's one that you can sort of like buddy up with in school. That way you're like, hey, I'm going to send you Julia and she's terrible at blank, so maybe you can help her out, right? And that'll kind of like, there'll be a different dynamic there, rather than like, can you fly with this person and make sure they're good to solo? So yeah, so try to find that. And then of course, if you're a student, just be like, hey, I'm going to go fly with this instructor and just do it, right? There's no harm in doing that, unless it's against their school policy. But even then, I don't know why it would ever be against anyone's school policy. So, number 1, go to another airport, another location to practice your maneuvers or your landings. Number 2, fly with somebody different, okay? Number 3, these last 2 are kind of more for CFIs a little bit. One thing that I used, because sometimes, you do like a week of landing, and then you go do like maneuvers. They do really good maneuvers, and you come back and they just couldn't get their landings down or something, or I don't know whatever it was. But I would have the student explain to me what they were thinking, because the way that I taught, and the way that most CFIs teach, is they talk you through the steps, and part of it is to get your brain to start thinking ahead of the airplane, right? Some people find that annoying. I have been cussed at by grown men who don't lie. I've been told that I had a student who said, I am going to the FAA to discuss about how instructors instruct, because I have been to plenty of schools and I've had a lot of students or a lot of instructors, and they all teach the same, and I need to go talk to somebody in the Biden administration. And I was like, go. I'm the one that's got a couple thousand hours. Like, I think you're good there. Almost a couple thousand, but yeah. So anyway, the way that we teach is to get you thinking ahead of the airplane, right? So it's not just like, oh, poop hit the fan, guess I'll just stall it now, right? So, you want to be able to, as I said, think ahead of the airplane. So one of the things that I had my students do is go, okay, talk me through what you're thinking. And then we'd be in the down one, and they'd say, okay, well, I need to add flaps and reduce my speed, or, reduce speed and then add flaps, do it in the right order. Okay, I'm at my 45, now I'm gonna turn base, I'm gonna add flap 2. Meanwhile, we're still at pattern altitude, right? Because they didn't compensate for the balloon and blah, blah, blah. Again, entertainment purposes only. And then, we turned final, and I was like, hey, are we high or low? And they're like, well, we're really high. We got four white on the PAPI. All right, what do you think that is? And then it like clicks, right? And then they're like, oh, maybe I should have been looking at my vertical speed indicator and compensating for the balloon and pushing the nose over, right? And so then these things kind of start building up, and then you can see as an instructor what holes you need to plug in your teaching for your next student. So it really helps you, it helps the student, It helps your next student, so you can kind of go, okay, I'm not going to do that mistake. I'm going to reiterate the importance of looking at this instrument or reducing the power to this level or whatever it is, right? And then the fourth thing is have your student actually teach you. So this was one that worked actually surprisingly well. So along the lines of having your student walk you through what they're thinking, like, okay, now I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do that. If you take the controls as the instructor and you go, okay, teach me, they're in the hot seat, but then they have to like take a step out of themselves and go, oh, how do I translate? Like, how do I repeat everything she's done this entire time? And it works wonders because now they're going, oh, we're really high, so reduce the power. And you're like, oh, okay, they get it. So that was one that like really shocked me. Have the student try to teach you, and then you can see where the plateau is, right? So if you're doing steep turns, but for some reason the nose always balloons up and you end up gaining 200 feet or you lose 700 feet, have them go, okay, you know what? Talk me through the maneuver. What are you thinking right now? What is going on? Okay, where the nose is dipping, right? Because part of in your CFI check ride, you need to be able to explain yourself in the maneuver, and then if you fudge up, you're supposed to explain yourself as a, whoopsies, this is a common student error. Notice how the nose dipped below the horizon, or whatever the procedure is. So having the student kind of do that so early on in their career actually does them pretty well. And they can start to see this as they progress in their training. You go, okay, I don't know, teach me. You know, tell me what you're thinking. And it really creates a really nice dynamic between you and your student, because now your student's in the hot seat. They also kind of understand the difficulty of teaching while flying and, you know, not killing you and yourself and your student. So it really improves the dynamic, and it does a really good job, I think, personally. But yeah, so those are just 4 things. So go to another airport or another area to practice your maneuvers. Fly with a different instructor. If you're a CFI, try to find somebody that you can tag team with so you guys can sort of work on teaching your students together. And then have the student verbalize what they're doing through the maneuver as they're doing it. And then number 4, have your student actually teach you the maneuver. You take the controls, they talk you through it, and then you can kind of see, hey, what did I miss? What can I work on? So hopefully these are helpful, and yeah, hopefully you'll take some of these. If you have your own tips and you're a CFI, put them down below. Or if you're a student who went through a plateau and said, hey, this is how I got over my really crummy steep turns, let me know below. I'd love to learn, because I think maybe, who knows, I'll go into teaching again and I'll go, oh, that's a really good tip. So there you go. I'll see you next time. But yeah, have a great one, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.